Hello, welcome back. It's Rapid Regeneration with me, David Escamilla. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical professional. I'm not a professional weight loss person. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not making any medical claims or claims about diseases. I'm just a regular person. I'm self-taught, self-educated. I'm also certified, formally educated. I am a detoxification specialist, but I have basically become obsessed with how to solve health problems naturally so that I could fix my own problems and get out of my own misery that I was in as a young man for many years. And then once I got healthy, I became interested in, okay, how do I make sure I stay healthy? How do I go to the next level of energy, performance, and feeling good? And now that I've done that, I'm paying it forwards and I'm sharing that with you. My goal is to help you. I know that this information is powerful. I know that it works. I've seen it work on so many people. So I'm not just a fluke. This is real powerful truth. And so this particular segment is a really important one, because if you miss this one, all the other techniques are not going to work nearly as well. And this is about ideal weight achievement. And then once you achieve that weight, how to manage that weight, how to keep it. There's always going to be some fluctuation, so that's understandable. But how to basically achieve ideal weight and hang on to that and keep that going. Now this is a personal topic for me. I mean, it's in fact, I get a little emotional just thinking about it because it does hit home. I mean, I was heavy. I had several phases of being heavy. The first was in elementary school, and I got made fun of. I got bullied. I was chubby, and then I ended up joining sports, and I lost the weight, and it was night and day. Just you notice the difference, how people treat you, how you feel, all that kind of thing. But then I got so into junk food and eating. I was obsessed with. I was like a bottomless pit, just eating. And by the time I got to sophomore year of high school, I was heavy. I was up to 215 pounds at about 5'10". So that's about how much is that? What is that? Like 40 pounds overweight, maybe even 50. And it was tough. Again, now I'm looked at as the chubby kid, and girls don't look at me with any much attraction. I'm kind of like the goofball, and and what happened was I ended up going into to get a prescription for ADD. I went in and got diagnosed, and they gave me the tests, and I was like, all right, I know what I need to say to get ADHD or whatever, and so they gave me the prescription for Adderall, and I would take it, and because I had taken it and I knew that it would kill my appetite, so I decided to do that, and over about 6 months, I took it, and it killed my appetite. I would take it in the morning, and sometimes I wouldn't eat until dinner, or I would just have a little snack here and there. I wouldn't eat all day, and you know what? I lost the weight, and I got back down to an ideal weight. And then once I did, I ditched the pills. I stopped taking them, and I was able to maintain it. But then again, in college, then it blew up again. Then I slimmed back down. Then it got so it was kind of over the years. It's been a little bit of of a yo-yo for me, and I understand if you're ever struggling. And by the way, that was a bad decision to take a pharmaceutical that's toxic and changes neuroplasticity and everything else. And but I understand the desperation. I understand how tough it can be, and I understand the difference it makes. So when you get it right, there's nothing like it. When you're at your ideal weight, when you're thin, trim, whip thin, and you feel like you want to be in your body, there's nothing like it. It's a good feeling. And when you're not, when it's a problem, and you feel like you're carrying around excess weight, it's very preoccupying, and it kind of preoccupies everything, and it's permeating. And so you deserve to put your attention on higher level things. You really do, and you have to know that. And don't let any feelings of self-guilt or inadequacy or anything that your parents told you growing up or anything like that, do not let that stop you or create some block, like you can't have the body that you want. So that there is a mental aspect to it, 1,000%. And so basically there's a number of ways to help with ideal weight achievement. I'm going to go through them here. This is many, many years of learning and nuances and insights, things that are not necessarily obvious, and they're super effective. So that's the goal of this segment, is to help you, give you more tools to get there. Now, if you want the simple way, if you want the the tough high school football coach method, kick in the ass method, it's this, which is eat less and exercise more. Okay, that's it. And the reason, and I can bet if you're struggling with weight that's not happening on some level. So that's as simple as it gets, but of course there's more nuances to it. So I'm just going to go through the different ones. And by the way, the metric that I would prefer to use is not so much weight, but you can, I think, get a better understanding. Let's say if you strip down naked, look in the mirror, if you can get a full body mirror and see how do you look in that mirror, or is this the physique that you would consider ideal? Because weight is not necessarily the best metric, because you can have muscle that weighs more than fat, but muscle would be a good thing. And so are you accumulating fat stores in your thighs, your hips, your belly? How about all the guys out there in your belly area, abdomen? What about your arms, your chest? How about your neck and face? Is your face kind of bloated? And so are you physically sort of athletic or in a good shape? And I'm not saying that you have to have a six-pack and cut muscles everywhere, but just that's the better metric of how do you look. So here's some different tips and tricks in terms of ideal weight achievement, and then hanging on to that, keeping that going, and maintaining that. Okay, first of all, avoid eating late in the day. This is a huge one. If you go to bed at 11 p.m., try to eat your last food of the day no later than 7 p.m. First of all, you have to let your body digest. You have to give it time to digest before you go to sleep, so that you'll sleep properly and get enough rest. But the other thing is, the later in the day that you eat food, the more likely that it's going to not be used for energy and be stored as fat. So this late night eating, I see this just holding people back over and over. And eat a bigger dinner. Really, if this is a problem for you, stuff yourself at dinner. So that you're not gonna be hungry when it's bedtime. Um, okay, consider cutting your salt intake. This can create a vicious cycle of cravings if you're really eating a lot of salty foods, and if you can get a handle on that, then this should help with cravings. If you are going to eat salt, it'd be much better to eat not eat processed table salt. Instead, use a completely unprocessed sea salt if you are going to use salt. And by the way, there's a salt that's a good salt you can find at rapidregeneration.com/salt. Okay, next up is, consider an alternative also to processed salt. Even sea salt is inferior to sodium that's in plant, attached to a plant. So definitely intake a green powder that has a lot of sodium. It's also super nutritious, so by giving your body more nutrients, you can ideally have less cravings. So definitely consider taking a green powder, rapidregeneration.com/green powder. Okay, next, if you're trying to lose weight, and you're eating a lot of sugar like you are with fruits, fruits are great, but it's better to eat them earlier in the day. Carbohydrates specifically, as we mentioned before, they get stored as fat. If it's later in the day, they're more likely to be stored as fat. So if it's earlier in the day, then it's so much more likely they'll be expended as fuel during the day. So if you're going to figure out, okay, if you're going to eat a meal that's, let's say, higher in fat and protein, it would be better to have that meal for dinner. It would be not as good of a strategy to have a lot of fruit in the morning for breakfast, then you have a big lunch with a lot of fat and protein, and then for dinner you have another smoothie or a big meal with a lot of fruit and sugar. That would be much not as good because that's more likely to be stored as fat versus having two meals high in carbs and then the third meal as lower in carbs. That would be better. Okay, next is exercise. It's your number one friend in terms of your weight. You don't have to work out every day. Consider working out at least 2 or 3 days a week, getting at least 30 minutes to an hour of good exercise. If you don't belong to a gym or you can't afford it, etc., get a space in your house that's 10 feet by 10 feet. Pull up some videos online or join one of these online membership things for $10 a month, or and figure out some moves that you can do to move the body and get the heart rate up. Or get a bicycle, or just do something, for God's sakes. Which is better, cardio or resistance training? So they're both good in their own ways. It's nice to switch them up, but the conventional wisdom is that you can lose more weight with cardio. There have actually been numerous studies that you can actually burn more calories if you're doing weight training with frequent enough intervals, aka resistance training. Resistance training is great. It's actually cardiovascular anyways. You're getting the heart rate up if you're working with some weights or resistance, but you're also building more muscle. The more muscle you build, you're going to have a higher metabolic need anyway. So you're going to end up burning more calories at a resting state if you put more muscle on the body. So in this way, you could say that weight training, resistance training is actually superior to cardio. But I love cardio. I like to do both. I like to warm up with cardio and then once you're feeling good, energy's up, endorphins, then do some weight training. Okay, next up, try to work out first thing in the day. This can set the metabolism in gear for the rest of the day, and so you can enjoy burning calories throughout the day. Now there is a philosophy out there about losing weight, which recommends eating protein right before working out in the morning. Personally, this is not for me. I prefer to work out on an empty stomach. This makes more sense to me. If you think about nature, if you think about anthropology, and you think about our roots, it makes total sense that we would have an empty stomach. That would be why we would be exercising, to go collect food, and then we get to eat. So that to me is just in a more natural balance. Now there's a lot of science, you can look into it. Some people like to eat carbs before their workout. Some people, they'll eat 30 grams of protein and do, there's all this different things. And if you're on empty stomach, how much glycogen you burn versus before you start getting into burning fat, versus burning any carbs that you've eaten. So there's a lot of different science it's fascinating, you can look into it. But I don't want to, my goal is not to be the biggest nerd in the room and understand all the different things that are going on academically. My goal is to understand what works and what's most effective, and that's why I'm thankful for my intuition, which would say, work out on an empty stomach first thing in the day, just like you would have in nature. And I do that, and it works. Next up, make sure you're getting enough sleep and resting properly. If you're sleep deprived, you're that much more likely to get cravings. That affects your pituitary gland, not having enough sleep. And the pituitary gland is also largely responsible for appetite. So you could be getting cravings, you could not have as much of a good gauge on your appetite. There's another segment about getting the best sleep, so be sure to check that out. Also, on a related note, you can turn down your thermostat in your room at night. By sleeping in a colder temperature, your body will naturally expel more calorie units to keep your body's resting temperature. Okay. Next up, become an observer of yourself. When you eat foods, when you eat junk foods, when you eat bad foods that are making you put on weight, what's causing this to happen? Look at yourself objectively from an outside lens. Pay attention to your emotions, so that you can maybe identify what's going on. You could get to the root of it and solve some other problem, perhaps some emotional problem that is causing this to happen. And I would say that overeating, eating junk food, and being caught in kind of an addictive, vicious cycle, and I've been there, trust me. Sometimes it's just fun, like when I was, when I was a teenager, and it was just fun. But I mean, there probably was some kind of dark, thing that I was trying to fill, some void at the same time, because that was actually kind of a rough time for me. But in adulthood, I mean, it's 100% of the time there's some emotional thing that's going on. Maybe not 100%, but almost all the time, especially in adulthood, once you know better, and everything like that, and you're doing it anyways, there's some kind of emotional thing that's happening. On a related note, pay attention to your stress levels throughout the day. A lot of times people eat when they're stressed out. They just want to check out. They want a little bit of escapism. Put on their favorite show and just eat something pleasurable. Well, um, this can happen. The longer you go without food, the more you can feel like you're getting ratted out and ragged. So while the better in shape you get, and the more advanced you can get, the longer you can go without food. And while that can be a good thing, when you're trying to achieve your ideal weight, don't wait such a long time to eat. Don't let your hunger grow so intense that it just takes over, because then it puts you in this weird possessed state, and you end up choosing a food that's not healthy. So this can be tough when you have work involved. You're doing some job, and then it's there's pressure to finish tasks, and then it's like, oh, I'm getting hungry, I have to go eat. No, you need to finish this. And so, but sometimes it's better just to break down, stop what you're doing, and just take a pause and go eat a meal. Or if you can't, then have a snack. Maybe you have a big craving coming on in the late afternoon. Well, break down, have a big snack. Then by the time it comes to dinner, you can have a more moderate, a reasonable dinner. Okay, next up is watch out for proteins and fats, even healthy ones like avocado, coconut, nuts. These are very calorically dense foods. This is how God made them, super calorically dense. That's what makes them special. And in nature, that would be great, because we could feast on them. We could store those units on our bodies, and that would sustain us for a long time. But just be aware that these foods can cause you to put on weight. Just think about a pig. When you're puffing up a pig before you take it to market, in the weeks before, you feed him chestnuts. And so, again, it's just a very dense food. I know the conventional wisdom is that eating fat and protein will not cause someone to gain weight, and carbs will. Well, it's not quite that simple. There's a lot of nuance behind it. And again, you can get into all the science and you can read into everything. But I'm telling you, in real life practicality, I'm more liable to put on weight by eating more dense foods, proteins and fats, than I am with carbs. Now you need both, so you need all three. So you eat some level of all three. But I'm just telling you, these are very dense foods, and they are liable to cause you to put on weight. Okay, next up, nobody can escape the cravings for a more filling meal, especially in the modern type diet. A meal is typically very dense, high fat, high protein, filling. This is like a typical meal. So to go from that to a smoothie or a salad, it is it is a big shift. And so you're going to have these cravings, and maybe it's natural on some level to have these cravings. But you don't want to just, surrender to these cravings or admit defeat immediately. All right, I'm craving high fat, high protein foods. I'll just eat it. You want to have some level of healthy resistance and kind of push and pull with these cravings. And I understand it. But basically, the way you could approach it is say, you know what? I'm going to be a really good boy all week long. Monday through Thursday, I'm going to eat really good. I'm going to eat more other things, smoothies and salads and etc. And but even though I'm having a little bit of cravings for more high fat, more protein, I'm gonna kind of push them off and keep them at bay. And then when the weekend comes, you know what? On Friday, all right, I get to reward myself. Get to have a big meal of this. Get to have another big meal on Saturday or Sunday. Now, if I'm a really good boy, maybe I can go weeks. Maybe I go a month It depends on my goals, what your goals are as well. You don't necessarily need to be that extreme. Now, the other thing is, even going 4 days is a lot. So, if you can't do that, if that's too strict, then try to have just one meal a day that's more filling and satiating, more high fat, high protein, and be like, all right, I'm gonna be good for breakfast, I'm gonna be good for lunch, and I'm gonna make it to dinner. And for dinner, I'm gonna really indulge. Okay, if you can't handle that, then make it 2 meals that are higher fat, higher protein, and have one meal that's, let's say, fruits or a smoothie. If you did that, you would want to have your first meal, like we talked about earlier, be your more high carb meal. But I mean, do what you can do and work it from there. That's what I did. I mean, I actually, if you think about the modern diet, people are eating 3 meals a day that are super high in fat and protein. You go from eating, eggs and bacon for breakfast, and that's your first meal. So when I first started to get healthy, I was eating 3 meals a day that were high in fat and protein. 3. And then all this took a long time for me to transition, but then I worked into 2. I finally figured out, okay, I'm going to have a big smoothie for breakfast. I figured out what kind of smoothie that would keep me full until mid-morning when I have a snack, and etc. And I finally figured that out. That was a huge shift for me. And then I figured out, okay, how can I then have another meal and wait until dinner before having a high fat, high protein meal. So it doesn't happen overnight. It actually took years for me. But just have that mindset where you're not just giving in to, okay, well, I'm craving fats and protein, so that's what I'm going to have. Push it off for a little bit. If you can't push it off a week, push it off a day. If you can't push it off a day, push it off until dinner. If you can't push it off until dinner, at least push it off till lunch, and have that mindset where you're going into battle. You have to kind of have that mindset on some level with these cravings. Okay, next up, consider intermittent fasting to help continue to burn calories. So, in other words, consider not eating first part of the day. Wait 1 hour, 2, 3 hours. If you can, wait as long as you can. In my view, in my experience, you would have a better result from waiting longer to eat breakfast and having a bigger breakfast than you would from first thing you wake up, then you have a smaller breakfast. It'd be better to have a bigger portion, but you give your body some time to burn excess calories, to be in a state of fasting. And if you can go an hour or a couple of hours, that would be amazing. So consider doing that. Next up, keep yourself accountable. This is something you could try that it seems like nobody really wants to do, which is because it's hard to look in the mirror, but write everything down that you eat for a week. Then go back and read everything, and you might be shocked at what you're doing. So sometimes just looking at the man in the mirror or the woman in the mirror can shock us into making a change. Okay. Next up, create an image of yourself in your mind of yourself at your ideal weight. So this is a visualization technique. It's basically think about how good that feels, sort of feel that emotion, and maintain that image of what that looks like, how that feels, what that would be like. And then give gratitude for the universe for delivering that to you, and say thank you in advance. I appreciate me looking like this, and me being at this weight. And this is an affirmation technique, but it's really a visualization technique, and that really helps program the subconscious mind, because you don't really want to be consciously having to fight this battle. It's just too rough. You need some kind of subconscious programming that's gonna make these decisions easier for you. That's coming from somewhere other than just you saying, all right, I gotta be good. So you really want to program your subconscious, and the longer you can hold that image, the more powerfully it's going to program the reticular cortex and the subconscious mind. Okay, on an extreme level, okay, if you're willing to try something that's really kind of funky and out there, okay, find someone on one of these freelance services for $10, and pay someone to edit a picture of your face onto a body that you wish to have. Find some celebrity or some actor or some athlete, and a picture of your face that's matching somewhat the position that they're in, and have it edited, and then basically print this out, and or set it as your desktop image or your background, and keep looking at it often. And again, this is just an extension of the last technique, but it's creating a visual. And the more that you look at this, your mind is accepting that this is what you are, and it's going to work to create that, your subconscious. Okay, next up, as we get into the last couple, there's a few more techniques. Okay, do a colon cleanse, a liver cleanse, and a parasite cleanse. I mean, do the total body cleansing that's referenced in other segments of rapid regeneration. How can you go after your weight management, your weight achievement, if your intestines, your gut, you could be carrying 5, 10, 15 pounds of just toxic waste that just needs to be blasted out of the gut. What about your metabolism being super slow, super sluggish, because your liver is not processing hardly? Maybe it's functioning at 40%, 30% of what it could be, because it's all clogged up. It needs to be cleansed out. And then what if your cravings are being influenced, and basically you have overgrowth, parasitic overgrowth, and harmful organisms in the body that are causing you to crave a bunch of foods that are not good for you? This is a vicious cycle. So all these things are going to create blocks to achieving this weight achievement. Now, you could still achieve it even if you don't do the cleanses. It's just going to be that much harder. So make it easy for yourself. And look at those segments about doing those cleanses, and make a decision, make a commitment to cleanse out those systems of the body, and see how much more effortless it is for your body to then go into a balanced, ideal weight. Okay, next. There's few things which work better at stripping fat off the body than cold temperatures. Now, this is a tough one because it's very uncomfortable to, at the end of your shower, your warm shower, turn it to cold and just stand there. Much less go outside in the cold air or jump into a cold bath. But it's an overabundance of comfort that causes somebody in many cases to become overweight. And so if you can embrace an uncomfortable technique, and also if you learn some breathing techniques and learn how to control your breath, it does rejected you or belittled you, and you want a sort of a revenge, you know, let that motivate you. There's no shame. However dark of a secret it is or a motivation, embrace that. Use everything that you can to achieve your ideal weight. So do it now. You have permission to embrace that side of yourself and go after it. Okay, next up, consider the possibility that there may be an iodine issue in the body. This is extremely common due to the lack of nutrients in the soil, the way that big agri farms, where people do not have enough iodine in their body. This can have a great effect on the thyroid. The thyroid largely controls energy metabolism, and it uses iodine more than any other tissues in the body. So if you don't have enough iodine, it may be no surprise your metabolism may be underperforming, sluggish, among other issues in the body. So there's a whole segment dedicated to iodine. Check that out, because again, to the degree that you try to do all this and go after your weight, but if your thyroid's not metabolizing fast enough, or your body's lacking a mineral like iodine, then it's that much more of an uphill battle, and it could be that much easier if you also approach this issue as well. It's a nuanced issue. I'm not just saying go out and take iodine. I'm saying review the information, look at that segment, and that way you can know more about it. Okay. Lastly, okay, if you're absolutely at the end of your rope, so with weight loss and you're not achieving results and you just feel stuck and you're lacking motivation and you're not getting anywhere, this is kind of a last resort. If I was in that situation, and I have been, and I've made this decision personally, I would not be opposed to using a natural product that supports weight management and that supports the goals of ideal weight achievement. So there is a product. You can find it at rapidregeneration.com/weight management. Now, I'm hesitant to even refer to that product because it's really not, there's some issues with it. It's a little bit controversial. It actually contains caffeine in it, a natural source of caffeine. And, I don't like to recommend caffeine. I really don't recommend caffeine. I recommend seeing if you can get off of it at some point. There's other issues with it. That's covered in another segment, the nuances about caffeine. The other thing is it contains a very small amount of iodine, and iodine is controversial in its own way. It is possible to overdo it and take too much iodine, even though this is a very small amount. But really, you should review the information in the iodine segment. So these are the reasons why. It's not really totally my favorite approach to just take this product, even though I took it at one point. It did really help me. So I have to be transparent, even though there's things about it I don't like. It's imperfect, but it's pretty thoughtfully formulated. There's not unnatural synthetic things in it. And so I have to mention it. So again, that's rapidregeneration.com/weight management as a last resort. If you're going to use it, just use it. Once you have gotten your goal, go ahead and be done with it, and then move on to where you don't need that extra stimulation. Okay, that is it for the different techniques. I know this is a long one. There's a lot that goes into this. There's a lot of ways to get there. If you're trying to get to the top of a mountain, with the top of the mountain being your ideal weight, these are the different ways you can get there. Or you can just say, you know what? I'm going to eat less and I'm going to exercise more. And if that's all you need, that's great. But there's all these different other things that can hold you back. And if you can address them, it can make it that much easier to achieve your goal. And if you've never achieved it, if you've always struggled and you've always been carrying around some extra pounds and the way that makes you feel is not good, maybe it's because you've never implemented some of these areas. Experience. So you can do it. You can absolutely do it. That's the final message is you can do it. You're able to do it. And you will do it. So I look forward to seeing your results. Go ahead, get started, make a commitment, and do it now. And I'll see you on the next segment.
For more information, please follow @Rapid Regeneration or visit rapidregeneration.com.